welcome everybody to episode 3 of the 435 podcast. Pretty exciting. I'm glad we made it this far to episode 3. Yep. We have a special episode today. Pretty excited. We get to interview legendary coach Davie Swensen, which we'll get to in a bit here. But just a quick follow-up. Make sure we're trying to get out there on all platforms now. So Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, and Substack. So go ahead and give us a follow and a like.
Thanks, Clint. So let me introduce our guest, Davie Swensen. Davie has a lot of experience. He's been a head coach overall in the sport of wrestling for 35 years, 28 of those in the state of Utah, 7 more in Idaho. His accolades include over 450 dual meet wins. In the state tournament, he has finished in the top 5 26 times. His teams have won 5 team titles, 4 runner-ups, and 8 third-place finishes. He has coached over 20 academic all-state winners, over 50 state champions, over 30 runner-ups, and over 200 state placers. Davie has been voted 4 times as the Utah Coach of the Year, and in 2007 was voted as the NFHS Coach of the Year, so for the whole United States. But most importantly, Davie was my high school coach, as someone I consider a dear friend and a mentor, so we're grateful to have you here, Davie.
Thank you very much. My pleasure to be here.
Yeah, this is exciting, you know. What do they do for that coach of the whole U.S.? What do they do? Anything special for you, or do they fly you out anywhere?
Yeah, they give you an opportunity to pay $700 and buy a ring. So it's pretty cool.
There's always a catch with it, right?
Yeah.
Hey, you did a really good job.
Then you have to write some articles and stuff.
Yeah.
It was a surprise and an honor.
That's cool. Yeah. So we'll kind of hop on into this too then. So just to get started, all right. So what's your drink of choice? Diet Coke?
Diet Mountain Dew.
Diet Mountain Dew.
Yeah. I don't like Mountain Dew.
Not regular, just diet.
I never have liked it, but I like Diet Dew.
So we got Diet Mountain Dew.
I'm Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, well, that's okay.
That's all right. And I'm Diet Coke, so I think we've got all bases covered here, pretty much.
See,
right?
I had you pegged as a Coke guy.
I did too.
I'm glad to know that's not the truth.
No, I'm not I hope Coke's not an advertiser.
No, we're not.
No,
okay.
We're not that.
Not
we're
at
not in the
all.
big leagues yet at all.
Well, we're going to get there.
We'll see.
Sweet. Did you have another question?
Oh yeah,
I got a question.
Let's hear it.
How the heck am I the third broadcast?
Third one. Well, we started off talking. My biggest thing, we're trying to get more people to learn about wrestling around here, and the biggest issue I hear is people say, I don't want my kids losing weight. So we tried to address that in the first one, talk about how it's changed a lot, especially with guys like Kyle Dake, who've gone up in weight and been successful. And then episode 2, we kind of got into some basics of scoring, trying to.
Okay, so I'm the first guest.
You're the first.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
You're the first interview.
We're back.
Yeah.
We're back on the good graces.
No, I mean, who better to interview in Cache Valley than legendary Coach Davie?
That's right. We saw our numbers dropping a little bit, so we needed to get some really high profile.
I'm sure this will put you on the top.
Yeah. All right, I got a question for you.
All right.
Why do you love the sport of wrestling?
I love the sport of wrestling because it's as close as you can get to real life in a sport as anything there is. You know, we're supposed to get better at life as we learn the lessons, as we do things. But every lesson is up to us to learn. We can watch others, and others cheer for us in life. We got family and friends that want us to do well. But ultimately, how we do is it's up to us. And wrestling, there's not another sport that teaches that better. And I love the lessons that people can learn from wrestling.
The individual accountability and responsibility.
Within a framework of teamwork too.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's a good
which
point.
it's to me it's the best of both worlds.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I like that too. I think in wrestling, it's one of the sports you can really see your development as well, right? You can see when you get better in wrestling, just because we compete so often, you can see that improvement.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I can remember when I was young, this will date me, but President Kennedy was the president of the United States, and he came up with this presidential fitness thing, and we all had to do it. And one of the things we had to do was high jump. And of course, I've always been competitive, and I wanted to win. So I built a high jump pit like 2 or 3 years in a row, and I practiced and practiced and practiced, and I was like, got last place. And wrestling, you know what? The best wrestlers are probably also very good athletes, but you don't have to be a gifted athlete. You got to be determined, and you can make yourself pretty dang good. I've coached some kids that, and athletically, they weren't very good, but they're great wrestlers.
Yeah. There's a lot of ways to win a wrestling
Oh
match.
yeah, yeah. So I like that about it. If you're determined and you want to put in the time, and I always say hard work's almost always rewarded. And I could still be high jumping, and I couldn't high jump. So I like that about wrestling. You can learn how to make it work.
Yeah.
I like that.
Developable skill.
Yeah. And the skills are different for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I have a couple questions, just kind of off it though. But where did you grow up?
Well, I'm southeastern Idaho.
Okay.
I grew up in two towns in Idaho. I started out in the town of St. Anthony, and we moved to Sugar City when I was pretty young, and I graduated from Sugar Salem High School. Something I'm still proud of. So.
Yeah, we've
I
seen
mean,
them. They're still wrestling.
Did you know any Mortensons in St. Anthony?
Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah.
my wife's family.
Oh yeah. There's Mortensons, a lot of Mortensons in the valley up there. Good people, most of them.
Yeah. Like every family, right? Like every
Yeah, but
Well,
they
I
had
got-
some.
Your wife's from the good
I
side.
married one of the good ones.
Well, some of them were my friends, so
I
that
see what
kind
you're
of gives you
saying.
the idea.
I see.
So
You're allowed to give them a hard time.
yeah,
Then,
no,
right?
there's a lot of Mortensons, good people.
That's good. Next question. What would you tell a parent who's considering getting in their kids into wrestling? What would be your pitch? Why should they get their kid into it?
Well, I've always thought that I used to send out a letter to all the 8th grade parents. I don't know if you guys got one or not when you were a kid, but I'd send them to every 8th grade boy there was, and I would make a pitch for wrestling. But I said make sure your kids are involved in something. All the studies. There's been tons of studies. The people that do the ACT did a study, and the number one predictor of success, whatever that is, in life, however they define it, is actually participation in extracurricular activities. That's better than your test scores. It's number one. So I would say, first of all, make sure your kids are active in something. And then my pitch is, if a lot of times people get involved in Little League this and Little League that, and a lot of times that's daddy ball. And it really does depend on who your mom and dad are. And
Politics.
yeah, well, and I don't blame them. They're the ones that are given all the time. So yeah, they're probably gonna let their kids play. And sometimes they get a little bit turned off by that. But I've always said, well, in wrestling, I say, you guys wrestle and whoever wins. The coach doesn't pick the kids. The kids pick the kids, and I love that. So take some of that politics out, and also some sports are really tied into genetics. If you want to go deep in football, you got to have a certain body style. If you want to be in basketball,
Certain height.
you got to be
Sprinting.
sprinting. How much white
Fast
muscle
twitch
fiber as opposed to all that
Wrestling, we
stuff.
got 5'1" guys all the way up
Oh,
to
yeah.
6'4", whatever. And
And we got to wait for everybody. So those are my pitches. It's for everybody style, and I've had tall, skinny kids win championships. I've had short, squatty body kids. I've had kids that were 4.0 all the way through. I've had kids that we just had to almost make deals with the teachers to get them eligible, and they've all done well. And so it truly is a sport for anybody. There used to be, I don't know if you remember, years ago, USA Wrestling put out a poster, and it had our little tiny guy named Tim Vanny and it had our big guy Bruce Baumgartner on the poster, and they were as different. One weighed 104 pounds and one weighed 300 pounds, and it said anybody can wrestle. So that's my biggest pitch, is there's a place for everybody, and they can be successful.
I like it.
So.
When did you take over Mountain Crest and start coaching there?
Well, I started in the fall of, I've been here 40 years exactly now. This summer was my 40th year. So I was the third year of the school, and I happened to be their third head wrestling coach. And I took over the fall of 1985, so the graduating class of 86 would have been my first class that I coached.
And there was just Skyview and Logan.
At that time, there was Skyview and Logan and us in the valley. And we actually, I don't want to make any Logan people mad, but we actually lost to Logan my first year. Logan was the two-time defending region champions when I got here. And we lost to them, and I can still remember 2 matches we lost in that duel, and it was the only time they lost to that particular kid all year, and we lost 34-32. And I'm still a little bit angry about it, but that's the only time we've ever lost to Logan, was that first year.
So when you took over the program back then, what was your vision of the program?
Well, I was excited to come, because I'd coached at a small school.
Mm-hmm.
And we did pretty well in Idaho. A school called West Jefferson, and it had a total of about 200 kids in the school, that's a half of a class here. So I was excited about the numbers, but I was surprised. Got to be careful here.
You can be candid.
No, my dream was that we could build a program. When I got here, the best programs in Utah were Brighton. Brighton had won like 9 or 10 in a row. Delta was really good. Uinta was really good. And I wanted, when we walked into a gym, when the Mountain Crest Orange came in here, I wanted people to say, "Oh crap, the Mountain Crest is here," and wish that they had chosen a different tournament. That's what I wanted. And I think by the time we got out of here, we'd almost accomplished that a little bit. People weren't real excited when they went and looked at the wall bracket and saw that they had to wrestle a Mountain Crest kid. They didn't get that excited about it. And that's what I hoped for. So I guess it was realized.
Yeah.
Did that evolve at all through the years, or?
Yeah, when we got here, the only Little League program was one that Coach Ron McBride was running in Logan. And Skyview had a little, but there was nothing on our end. It was almost a new school, and there had been no Little League, and they'd done away with junior high wrestling up in Cache Valley. There wasn't any of that anymore, and there wasn't a freestyle program. So it had to evolve, and we got busy, and I ended up getting a lot of good people to help in all those, and pretty quick it was different than when I started.
Cool. What were some of the key things you had to do to build a successful program?
Well, one thing we've always been, and I still think this is true, we always had hard workers. I think we got the best of all the world out, especially when it was just one school and we hadn't lost all these good Ridgeline kids. But because we had a fairly good sized student body, but they all were small town kids. So they had that work ethic, the small towns, and the community support that you get from small communities. Small towns support their high schools at a much higher rate than bigger schools do. And then there's niches there, and they got great parents and everything, but it doesn't have the community backing, the smaller schools. And so we are a small school mentality with a lot of kids. So it was a perfect storm.
So you feel like you could ask for help from people, and you could get
great
people
help.
to do
Our family, I'm sure Jarrett's noticed this. If I come and watch a Ridgeline match, or his community still was our community. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
And we've just had a great wrestling community. We've had great Booster Club presidents, members of the Booster Club, and support, our family support and parents, off the charts. Yeah, really good.
Couple new questions.
Yeah.
We cover that pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna skip this one. We'll go back to it.
Yeah.
What does a state championship program look like? What do you see in the athletes? What do you, I guess, in the way they work, but, what does that program look like? What takes place there?
Well, first of all, and I'm glad now, it took me a lot of years. I came from Idaho where they allowed 2 kids to go to state. And I wanted that for Utah. I think it's good for kids. It's good so kids don't have to cut weight. It's good to keep your seniors out, that if the old way where only one kid could go to state, you lost a lot of your seniors. And if wrestling's good for a sophomore, it's good for a senior too. And so I worked really hard. I think, I'm not just me, but I talked to a lot of people, and it took us a lot of years to get this 2 kids per weight to get through. And so the first thing you got to get is numbers. You can't do it with 4 state champions. You got to have 14 kids that plays. And that means you got to have a diversity of kids. You have to have little kids that are good. You got to have big kids that are good. And so a championship program is a program. And there's a lot of teams or a lot of people out there that say you should only score 1 guy and stuff. But, wrestling is a perfect team sport because you got your individual champions. So the individual, I don't care what, and you see that. A bad team occasionally has a great, not just a great wrestler. And they get their accolades. They get to be the champion. But the state champion team should be the best team. And so that's what I believe. And so you got to start treating more than just 1 kid per weight. You got to start developing 2 and 3 and 4 kids a weight. So you got a lot of points. I remember several years ago, Maple Mountain had like 6 kids in the finals, and Mountain Crest had 2.
And then what, 2014, 13 or 14, something
20, like that? No, it's about 2014, and we only had 2 in the finals, and they had 6, and I think they won 5 of their 6, but we won state easy. It wasn't close because they had the best individuals, but we had the best team. So that's what a championship team looks like. It's a lot. It's a lot of kids, and that kid that scores 3 points at state, that's 3 points that somebody else didn't get. So that's 6 points.
He goes 1 and 2, but he gets a pin.
Yeah, he gets a pin, and like I say, he scored 3, but that's 3 that another program you're trying to beat didn't get. So you got it. I think a championship program is exactly that. A lot of kids contributing. You need your champions, but you need your 5ths and 6ths and kids that didn't even play.
I like that a lot. Kind of like to go on that same aspect. What does a state champion wrestler look like to you? I mean, you have over 50 champs, 200 placers.
And, yeah, and if you lined them up,
yeah,
there's a lot of them. But if you lined up the 16 kids that are at state and had somebody, I don't really do horse racing, but a couple times I've gone and I try to look at the horses, and you can't pick by what they look like. And that's the way wrestling. You can't look at a kid and say, there's a champion. You can't. It reminds me of, well, I'm going to wax a little bit scriptorial, but it reminds me when Samuel was sent out to Jesse's house to pick the next king, and he saw all of Jesse's kids and said, "Oh man, that guy looks like a stud. I'll bet that's the next king." And the Lord said, "No, that ain't him." Now, he didn't say because he's got real good grammar, but then finally he says, "Well, that can't be the one." And he says, "Yeah, you got to look at them like I look. You got to look at their hearts. You got to look inside." And that's the way champions are. It's from the inside out. It's not from the outside in.
Well said. Yeah. Let me just ask just to give people an idea, say somebody's listening and they want to become a state champ, and you've over 50 you've coached. Is there anything they all have in common, or is there a mindset? What type of...
There is a mindset.
What was it that made them champion?
I think it's more the mental approach than it is the physical, because like I said, I've had a little short, squatty, muscled up, and I've had tall, skinny kids that you think, well, that guy, But I've said this, so this broadcast is not going to be the first time I've said this, and I've said it before, and I'll probably say it again before I'm dead. I've coached over 50 state champions, and the one thing that every single one of them had in common is not one of them was surprised. I can't believe I'm the state champion. Not one of them. Were you surprised that you were a state champion? No, you planned for it. You dreamed about it. You worked for it. I've never had a champion surprised that they won it. I've had great kids that didn't win it, and they were surprised they didn't. But I've never had a kid surprised or disappointed, surprised that, I don't know if that's the right word, but that's one thing. The ability to see something that nobody else can see. Another scripture that talks about faith says, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And so it's been able to see what nobody else can see. A kid comes in your room and they're a freshman or an 8th grader and they can't even get in the stands, but they can see themselves performing like a champion, and they get there. Somehow they get there, and they use different avenues. I think there is a formula, but there's maybe 10 or maybe a recipe. A formula, recipe. What's the difference? But yours are going to be 12% technique, and yours are going to be 17% technique. And mine's going to I'm going to have to rely on 55% technique because I'm not strong, I'm fat, and I'm old. And so, but you have a little bit of all that. You have some strength, you have some endurance, you have some athletic ability, and it all adds up to a threshold that you have to reach to be the champion. But you're going to get there with different building blocks. But let's say the threshold's 600. You're going to use 120 of this, and I'm going to use 150 of that. But if we don't get to that 600, we're probably not going to make it. Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
I think you kind of answered another question I had, but so you can just skip this but the other thing I was going to ask was, what's most important for a wrestler? Is it mentality? Is it strength? Is it technique? Is it, discipline or dedication? What's most important, would you say?
Well, I think all those added in, but like say, I can have a little less I can require a little less mental toughness if I'm a stud athlete. I can require a little less physical strength if I got great technique. And so it takes all of those, and like I say, there is a threshold that you got to get to, but I don't know that there is a one thing. When I went to Boise State, and one of the guys he was my advisor. He was the old wrestling coach at Boise State, and he'd done his doctorate on exactly what you just asked. And he had over 120 different tests, and he tested hundreds and hundreds of high school kids to see what it was that made a champion. And he found one with a positive correlation, one thing, and that was grip strength. That was the only thing that had a positive correlation. Because some kids, he did biopsies, and some kids were short and chubby, and some were tall and skinny. So, like I said, some barely passed their classes, some were Rhodes Scholars. And so, but the only one that had a positive correlation was grip strength. And I think, I'd say that's probably true as I look back. Yeah, you and your brothers had incredible grip strength. And
You hear that? Do your farmer's carry, do
Yeah.
your pull-ups,
Climb the ropes.
climb the ropes.
there's no cows to milk anymore,
Yeah.
but
Insert that
Holiday.
clip.
yeah.
Insert the clip of Spencer Lee just
Yeah.
going across back and forth.
Yeah, grip strength.
Right. So you talked about how, all the champions had something in common where they weren't surprised by it, so they have that mental toughness. Like, as your role as a coach, how did you help them develop that mental toughness? So you got an 8th grader coming in, they're a freshman now. What did you do to help them get?
Well, it took me a long time to learn this lesson, and sometimes some lessons you learn and you think you've learned them, and then you find out you hadn't really learned that lesson. But I wished I could have believed 100% in all my kids, because you got to believe in your kids, and they got to know that you believe in them. I think that's the most important thing you can give them it's that looking glass thing. So they already have that thing we talked about, that vision of stuff that nobody else can see. They've got to be able to look at you and say, he sees what I see. He sees a champion. And that's, sometimes you got to fake. Does that make sense? I mean, you gotta say, yeah, you're going to be. No, but I wish that I could honestly, truly have believed in every kid as much as I needed to believe into them, because it's an X factor. It's a multiplier. You can get way. There's that old thing about vinegar and honey. I don't think you should necessarily lie to kids, but you gotta support them. You gotta love them. You gotta validate their reason for being there. And so that's a coach's responsibility, is to validate. And not every kid, Jared's gonna have 60 kids in his room this year probably, or close to it. And only 28 can even go to the divisionals. And so he's gonna have as many kids that don't get to go to divisionals as do get to go. But every kid that comes in that room has a reason for being there, and every kid's reason for being there is just as good as the other one. Now the secret is to get enough of them that the reason there is to be a champion, but that can't be the only reason kids are in there, or you'd only have 7 or 8 kids, 5 or 6 kids in your room. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah. And so I think that's a really interesting answer and a good one. I thought what you were going to say, because being your wrestler in your room, I can remember drills we did where a guy wins a short go and he gets to get up and flex, and the other guy says mamacita, or
who's the man,
stuff like that. So I was curious to see if you would take it that direction. I think this is interesting, but and valid. You got to be able to instill confidence in them, right? They have to feel like you believe in them. But what is, as far as mental toughness goes and getting guys to push their limit, what sort of drills or exercises did you utilize to help guys get tougher?
I wished I knew. Then I'd write a book and sell it.
Yeah, right.
Then
be a bestseller.
Then I'd say, well, if I'm going to be on your podcast, no, but and I don't know the answer to that. I wished I did, because you see kids, and you're just starting your little family, and I don't know.
I have 8 and 10-year-old.
Okay, yeah, but you'll find out is you think, well, they got the same mom and dad, largely the same DNA, they come from the same environment, and yet they're as different as different. And that's the way our wrestlers are. They come in the room, and some kids, I think if you asked me earlier, what's the most important thing? Tough. You got to be tough. And I think kids bring that in the room with them. I'm not sure. Years and years ago, I went to a coach's clinic, and Dr. Tom Osborne, I don't know if you know, he was a great coach at the University of Nebraska. He's a football coach.
Oh, yeah.
And that's when Nebraska was something. Yeah. And he talked about what a coach, you got to know what you can affect and what you can't affect, and don't waste time on the stuff you're not going to change. And he said this: you cannot coach desire. So I think kids bring that, and you say, well, his brother had it, so just because they're from the same family doesn't mean that they all come in. But I think I think you can cultivate that with your culture, and you can attract that kind of kids, but I'm not sure that's something you can put in kids. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's interesting.
You can't coach desire, so
build a culture that would attract the right
those
type
kind
of
kids. That kind of kids, yeah.
I'd also go, I don't know you that well. I'm familiar with your legacy and everything, but I think you're also very personable, right? So as a coach, I think you're pretty personable. I think you get to know them, and I think
there might be those that disagree on the other side.
Maybe.
The people that really know.
But as far as those in your group, I definitely.
Well, I could just see you being a good motivator, though, is what I'm trying to get at. I think part of our job as coaches is motivating, and
well, I think you can motivate, but you can't. And you can help people with that. Yeah. And you can do some things. It's kind of funny. We used to do silly little things. My Tic Tacs, for instance, I don't know. I don't know how many miles I've got out of Tic Tacs over the years. You know, I got some Tic Tacs right now. I've always had some Tic Tacs, and every once in a while give a kid a Tic Tac, and little things like that. We used to do things like pin socks and pin shoelaces and the pin club shirts. Just so there are extrinsic things you can give kids that help, that can help, but the champion's going to do it without that stuff. But if you want to build a program like I'm talking about, so that your 25th kid can maybe go to state and score you some points, those kind of things help that. Those kind of little, and then, you know, to celebrate a win, and to, you know, have a wrestler of the week and throw a pin shirt. I didn't wait till the banquets to give those things out. When a kid earned his pin shirt, they got him. When they, and so even at the end of a little practice, I don't know how many times we'd sit on the wall and they're tired, but you give a little talk right at the end of practice. And I don't know, they probably didn't think, but throwing out a shirt. I used to give oranges sometimes if they got a pin. Throw them an orange, silly little stuff. And it seems to go a long ways, but mostly you got to be able to let them know that they did a heck of a job. And it doesn't hurt to tell them how much fun you had watching them every once in a while. You know.
Well, let me just add that I don't know that I got very many Tic Tacs. But there was only 1 or 2 Tic Tac of practice that got handed out, and I remember you always made a big deal about it. So
yeah,
it wasn't the Tic Tac; it was the public recognition that I think kids really appreciated.
I didn't know that you handed out Tic Tacs.
These
are the secrets that are coming out now, right here. These are
operant conditioning, but it works on high school kids. I'll tell you that.
What about you got pin socks, didn't you?
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
Well, you remember my brother Jake? Freshman year, he got his pin socks. He pulled those things all the way up over his knee pads. And we went and wrestled some kid.
Yeah.
Maybe that was something.
Well, I didn't buy the little socks. I got
that was a big one. Well,
they probably went up to it.
and he looked like the biggest goofball, but he
Yeah.
walked out there and pinned some kid from Roy after that. So
Yeah.
that was probably sophomore year. But.
Oh, that's funny. I like it.
Well, it was fun, early in the year, and then some kids a lot of kids that got the pin the first day, and as soon as you got the pin, you threw them the socks. They came off the mat, and you gave them your socks.
So you just kind of gave them the first pin, they get a pin.
I started out with shoelaces. I gave shoelaces, and then later on, I thought, when we got a little bit more funding and stuff, I'm going to give them a pair of socks. And
They say anything on it? They say...
Just like a big
I'm a
tube
pinner.
sock.
They were big tube socks with the
color.
stripe with the.
Yeah.
I gave them orange. Some years I
School
gave them
colors.
orange.
Orange and a blue, I think.
Yeah, orange and blue, and then I gave
Hey,
them white.
like I said,
Yeah.
motivator right here,
Yeah.
right? He's motivating them.
Yep.
They're choosing to be pinners. I like it.
Yeah. Well, you get paid double for it. It's like working overtime.
It's true in the points. Either.
Yeah.
Do you have a question?
No.
Oh. How did you manage not to lose your voice as a coach?
That's what I was just
do
gonna
that
go to. I was just
every
gonna ask
weekend.
that.
I go,
Well,
coach, I lose my voice. How'd you do it?
I lost my voice the first tournament every year. But yeah, and what's silly, the coach is yelling, but so's mom and dad on the 50th row. They're all yelling half, as if they, oh yeah, mom said put a half in. And I don't know why we yell so much. I don't know. I think it's more of a release for us than it is any kind of instruction for them. By the time you yell to them and they think, oh yeah, it's too late. But you still do it. You do it.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know.
I think the only time it helps is if they get in a scramble or something where they're not sure what to do.
Yeah, well,
you help them walk through.
You can walk. Yeah, that's true. You can walk kids through, especially younger kids and beginner kids. You can walk them through stuff, but you can have them adjust. Put your knee here. Put your head there. But in terms of, no, I lost my voice.
No. See, I don't remember you losing your voice. That's why I asked that
No.
question. I lose mine all the time.
Yeah.
And Jarrett, we're gonna have to take a break from the podcast. Probably come in another month or so because Jarrett won't have a voice
I'll
anymore.
sound like I started smoking, which I will not do. But
2 packs a day.
Yeah.
This guy with that voice.
Well, the Tic Tacs help too.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. That's right. I need some.
So if you see us with Tic Tacs, pin socks, and oranges, next week.
Yeah.
Yep, you got it.
Well, you got to trick the kids. Wrestling is a very fulfilling sport, and Penn State guys always talk about how fun it is, but you think, oh, you're lying, And so you got to kind of almost trick kids. Once they get into it, it gets in your blood, and it is kind of fun. But fun's not one of the words that's used a lot with wrestling, and probably should be. It's our fault, but you got to do anything you can to make it a little fun, make practice a little fun, have a little contest, Mama Cita, stuff like that. So you almost got to trick them into thinking it's fun.
No, that's true. Find little things that you can add in there.
It's hard when you're starting out.
Got another question for you. Let's go. What, in your opinion, is the most important drill? You've ran probably thousands of practices. If you only had to pick one, what's the most important?
Well, I think I've been there, so I know I've been to the Olympic Training Center and I've seen practice. And every wrestler starts with stance and motion. It's so important to get in the right position, to be in a defensive position, but that where you can move and attack and defend. I think stance and motion, I don't think you'd ever see anybody, the best wrestler in the world is going to go stance and motion every day they're on the mat, every single day.
You're in good company. Was it last year we talked to Terry Steiner? Was it Terry or
It's
Troy?
Terry.
Terry came to Green Canyon, and that's what his answer was: stance and motion.
Yeah, well, first of all, I remember one time I had a kid, he ended up a state placer. He wasn't great, but he was a good kid and he was solid. And we were down a point, and it was late, and we had to get a takedown, and he didn't take a shot. And we were on our feet probably 35 seconds, and we needed the other kid doesn't need to score. He's ahead of point. Of course, now the scoring's changed. We could have dominated the kid with one takedown, but
Right.
but he never. And so then after the match, I said, "You didn't take a shot." And I won't say his name here because it might embarrass him. But he says, "Coach, he looked so good. I couldn't see. I couldn't see an opening. So a good stance is actually, it's a deterrent. It's like the old mutually assured destruction, that from the Cold War.
Yeah.
If the guy thinks if I shoot on him, he's going to score on me, and so so being in position is. And that's top, bottom, feet, position is so important in wrestling.
Yeah. The whole goal is to get them out of position, right? That's
Yeah.
why we sit there and move people nonstop to
So stance
wear
and-
on them. John Smith, I think, said it too. I mean, so you got all the greats saying stance and motion.
Yeah.
So let me follow up with that. What's your favorite how do you drill stance and motion?
Well, like everything, everybody's got their own idiosyncrasies. They got their own strengths and weaknesses. But I believe in a staggered stance so that for a couple reasons. You can't attack from a square. You cannot attack from a square stance. Nobody can. You cannot attack until you can't walk and stay square. You can't stay square. And so you got to have, and which side you lead is up to you, but you got to have a lead step. You got to, and that's the first thing we always drilled was that lead step attack so you can attack. Because if you do it right, you can take the same lead step and you can attack to the left, you can attack the middle, you can attack to the right with the same step. Same exact step on all of them. So I think a lead step. And then also, if I'm trying to stop you from shooting on me, if I've only got to defend half my body now. Square stance. When I was a kid and when I first learned, they told us that a square stance was a defensive stance, and that's crap. Because now you can shoot either side, you can shoot the middle. Yeah, I'd rather know which side you get. If my right leg's ahead, you're an idiot if you're shooting at my left side.
You almost funnel him on.
Yeah, I can now only gotta, and if I keep the correct low hand and all that stuff. So yeah, I think a staggered stance, which side you stagger, which side you step with, that's a preference that you have, but yeah.
Sorry,
That's
anything
good.
else?
No.
Okay. What makes a great coach?
Love. You have to love the sport. You have to love the kids. You have to love the grind. You have to love the off season when you're. You can't coach for money. That's for dang sure, especially in high school wrestling. I think you got to love. I think that's your. And I don't think that you need to talk about it, but to your kids, but you gotta love them. You gotta love what they're going through. You gotta appreciate them. I think, if I just one word, I'd say love.
That's a great answer right there.
Yeah,
That's
I
great.
like that a lot. And then kind of follow up, how have you evolved as a coach through the years?
Well, I didn't always love it. You can't coach from anger.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have tried to coach from anger, and you can't. I don't know very many things in life you can do from anger, but I used to. I think when you're a young coach, you're too involved. Your own ego gets in the way too much.
Absolutely.
And you get angry at kids. You think they did that stupid thing almost to spite you or to make you look bad as a coach. And you learn that you learn patience. I think a coach in his 40s, he can't do the same thing as a coach in his 20s can do in terms of physically and even demonstrating stuff. And now you get in your 70s, like, I can't show anything, But as you evolve, you get more empathy, you understand a little bit, and even though the kids are going through it for the first time, and it's the first that you've had other kids that have faced the same kind of issues, the same kind of stuff. But the other thing that makes a great coach, and I believe this, it's not what you teach, it's who you teach what. Okay, and because we've talked about that. One kid does nothing but throws. Another kid does nothing but low singles. Another guy does all high crotches. Another guy does blast doubles. And yet they all win. They can be champions. So it isn't the technique that you're showing in the room. It's who you're showing what technique. And I can like the high jump analogy. I can show one kid a blast double and I can have him do it every day, 50 times, 70 times, but that's not his shot. And I got to figure out what and he does too, figure out what his shot is, then help that kid do that thing. I think, and I don't know what people thought of our program at Mountain Crest. I know that we had a lot of success, and some people said I was an a-hole, and all that stuff. But I think if we did one thing that was good is we developed all types of kids. We had leg riders. We had people that couldn't leg ride, who couldn't even stay on for a second. But you got to find out what the kids can do, and then it's who you teach what. You can't have every Ridgeline kid, this is what we do at Ridgeline. Well, there are certain things and there's philosophies, but in moves, you can't say this is our move at Ridgeline.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
So that's what a great coach does. He identifies what a kid needs to match his abilities and his aptitude, and then make that work for that kid. And then sometimes, the secret is kids have got to stay after practice, because you got to run practice for your 60. And you can have some individual time, but kids have to stay after, and then that's when you work. And then you say, well, you help him with that. And you got a staff for a reason. Well, you help this one with that, and I'll help this kid with that. And so great coaches, they adapt the program to the individual. Does that make sense?
Personalize it.
I like
Yeah.
it.
That does make sense. So maybe jump in. I got another
Yeah,
one for
jump
you.
in that one.
You coached 2 loft houses that become D1 All-Americans. Were there any others that were Division 1 All-Americans?
No, I had one that should have been, but
Is that
But-
Travis kid?
yeah, one year his whole team was on probation, and he beat 5 All-Americans that year, but couldn't go to the big. At that time it was the Big 12. Couldn't go. His whole team was barred from that. And then his senior year, he had a bad injury. But he made the blood round twice. But I'm making kind of excuses for him. But he was way good enough. And their team won a national championship when he was there. He was a team captain. But those are the only two D1 All-Americans I've had.
Well,
I've had some other All-Americans at other levels. I know some JC All-Americans and
some high schoolers.
Yeah, and now we just had a kid that just won the NAIA.
Oh, I didn't know. Who was that?
Larson.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Elijah.
Yeah.
He won it.
Oh, I did know that. I did know that.
Where's he wrestling?
He's wrestling.
back in
Is it
Iowa, Grandview, right?
Grandview, yeah. And
That's
he
right.
just won the NAIA and won it easy. He
Yeah.
won by tech ball.
Yeah, he's tough.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's cool.
Well, let me ask you about the loft houses, and if Travis, if this is applicable to him too. If there's a kid that sees here's a local family that achieved a ton of success in the sport of wrestling, and they want to learn, from them to try to strive for that. What did it take for them to get that type of success? What were they doing in junior high and high school to get themselves to that level?
Okay. Let's talk about that family. I've had some great families. The Morals would be another family like that. But I've had some great families. The Schroers were a really good family for us. The Fiafias so family is. It's really important to watch your uncle, your cousin, your brother do things. And big brothers. I don't know if you've ever think, Justin, but big
Probably
brothers.
not enough.
Yeah, big brothers are so important to little brothers, moms and dads, but the role model. But that family. Let's just talk about that family. In about a 6-year period, 6 or 7 years, I don't know exactly how long on the calendar. I had 12 of those kids wrestle in the state championship match. 12 times they wrestled.
Yeah.
3 of them wrestled in the state championship match 4 times. That's 12. They won 11 of the 12. Okay. Now, in Utah, they have something called Super State. Do you want to know how many those Super State, and you can start in about the 6th grade going to Super State. Do you know how many, that's junior high. They won 2 Super State titles. So, but they were good. But they weren't the best. But by the time they got done, they were the best because they did everything. And they weren't exclusively wrestlers. They played football and did other sports. But they found a way to get on the mat every week. And they were great goal setters. They were great about setting goals and adjusting the goals, long-term goals, short-term goals. And they were really the best, maybe, family I've got to coach at that. And so they always had what they were working for. They always had something in mind. They had that vision that we're talking about, that faith to go get it. But they just worked hard. They left no stone unturned. They did everything. They went to other clubs. They went to camps. They freestyled. They were big into USA wrestling, and they did all the things you need to do. But they weren't exclusively wrestlers. They loved to hunt. They loved to fish, but they competed at everything. Everything was a contest. Everything in their life, and I've had others like that competed at everything. Had a set of twins that you can't believe how competitive those two were.
There might have been some punches and kicks thrown if somebody gave up a takedown.
Especially if their head coach happened to have his back turned. Yeah.
It's like
That head coach, I think, made us start drilling with other people.
Yeah, I want to know what that did for our program too. That's another thing that you got to make sure you do. Make sure that if you got some good kids, some really good kids, that they don't only work with each other, because they might be the best two for each other, and other kids might not give them a really good look. But sometimes it's what they can do for the other kids, not what the other kids can do for
Raise their level.
Yeah, right. I think you got to run your practices for your champions, but everybody benefits from that. So I think that's another thing we used to do. I don't know how many times a day I'd stop and change the groups. No, several times in practice, wouldn't we? Change the groups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, no, that's
like
true. That is true. Clint, what do you got?
I feel like we covered this one pretty well.
Okay.
How about a time, we've talked, I think this is kind of interesting, we've talked a lot about kind of like your teams that you've coached over the years. You go from runner-up finishes to back-to-back championships, right? In like 07 and 08.
3 in a row.
Three in
in a row.
1.5 points from
Almost 4
4.
in a row.
And you know how many ways you can score 1.5 in a tournament? Don't talk about that.
So you've kind of had the high highs, and you've had the low lows as well. Tell us about a time where you just had that adversity and how you helped your team work through it, help them overcome it.
I can remember one time, we've always been lucky to get a lot of accolades and noticed. And one time we had like 5 kids selected to the All-Star match.
Oh,
And we went down to UVU, and we only won 1 match. And I saw that as some adversity, and we addressed that. And we, less than a week later, we wrestled almost every kid that we lost to. We went to the Rumble.
Yeah.
And almost every kid that we had wrestled in the All-Star match, we got to see less than a week later, and we turned every one of those matches around. And it was a mindset, I think that expectations are such an important thing for kids to have, for us to have, for our society to have, for our culture. Because, and I've heard this quoted by, positive thinking people and people who write the books, that you don't get what you deserve, you get what you expect. And I think sometimes you got to be very clear what your expectations are. And on my expectations of those guys, they were our very best kids. And when we lost in that All-Star match, almost all of them lost late. And I thought it was a sign that we weren't in good enough condition. And I remember saying, if our very best kids aren't in shape, that means our other guys aren't in good enough shape. And I don't know if you remember those practices or not.
I couldn't forget that practice.
But I think it's important to let people know that no matter where we are, we have certain expectations, certain standards, and we're going to try to live up to those. So when things are going bad, and they will, you still got a standard that you got to try to live to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's a really good answer, actually. I like that a lot.
And yeah, things don't always go well. You don't win. Wrestling, I did some research, and if there's 100 winners, there's 100 losers.
Some real deep dive research.
Yeah, you can look it up. I mean, you don't Google it, okay?
Well, I remember that practice well, at least, and I'm sure the practices following were hard too, but you had that 60-40-20 drill.
Yeah.
You'd be in a group of 3, and it would be this sprint to get as many reps as you could, and we went through probably 5 or 8 different 60-40-20. I think it was the whole practice.
Yeah, it was the whole
And
practice.
we
The entire
just,
practice was 60-40-20s, which if you've never experienced it, you're lucky.
Well, it's an easy one to dog, but if you take it seriously, it'll wear you out.
Yeah.
So explain it for everybody. What is the 60-40-20?
Well, remember I used that word love earlier.
Yeah.
A coach that loves has a built-in rest period for kids.
20 seconds.
So you go
20 seconds.
but your rest period's half of your ongoing. So if you're on for 60 seconds, you get the rest for 30. And then you're on for 40 and you get the rest for 20.
And it's just sprinting.
And then you're on for 20. Well, it could be blast doubles.
Sprinting, snap
It could be
downs,
return to the mat drill.
whatever you
It
want,
could
yeah.
be sprinting. It could be push-ups. It could be, but when you're on, you're
on,
on. And you're everything you can go. And so and you got a group of 3. And so it's, you do your 60, 40, 30, then your partner does. And the other 2 take turns
Being the dummy.
Being the dummy.
Okay.
It's intense. And it's
If you
one of
do
the
it
things,
right, yeah.
it's one of the things that I learned about wrestling over the years, that I used to put them on the wall and make them run walls and stuff. And that was our condition. It was hard, but you can get more doing 60, 40, 30s, blast doubles, stand-ups. I mean, you name it, the drill, you can do it in a 60, 40, 30. And you can have people thrown up, but they're doing wrestling type stuff, which is way better than just running walls,
Yeah. They're getting.
in my opinion.
I can remember in my mind when it was the rest period, the phrase, "What a nice coach you have. You get a rest period."
Well, it was true. I didn't want you to forget that even though I'd been a little hard on you, I loved you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, and doing hard things makes you tougher, right?
That's right.
So
That's right.
I like it. That's great.
Let's see, what else have you thought? Did you ever have a most intense match ever when you were coaching, and for whatever reason, could have been with the other coach or maybe the matchup of the 2 wrestlers?
Well, we've had a lot of intense matches, duels, and I can remember a couple of them against Box Elder that stand out as a duel. As an individual match, I can't remember any individual single match that seemed like the most intense that we've ever had, but I don't think a coach ever forgets his first state championship. I mean, first state champion, and I can still remember mine. That was intense.
Who was your first state champ?
Well, his name was Kurt Hansen, and it was at West Jefferson, and we'd taken over a program that I love those guys, but I can't even tell you how bad they were. I can't even tell you how bad they were. The first duel that I ever coached at, home duel, they had bleachers that are about 6 benches high, but the whole bleacher you could pull out sections of the bleachers, and they pulled out one section of 6 high on one side, and my wife and my son and my infant daughter and maybe 2 parents and 2 students were there. And maybe 15 people were at that match. And but so they never had a state champion in the history of the school. In my second year there, my first year I was afraid we wouldn't even be able to take a kid to state. There were 8 kids or 8 schools, and they were really good. In fact, they got 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 6th at state from our region.
Tough region.
Yeah, and only 3 kids got to go out of 8. And so I was afraid we wouldn't even get anybody to state. But we did get 3 kids to state, and we actually got a kid into the state championship match. He lost, but he was in the finals. And they were all coming back. So the next year, and on the way home from state, the one kid says, "What do I have to do to be a state champion?" So I laid out some stuff. And I named several things, and he did them all. He did everything I asked him to do. And we get to the region match, and he's in the semis and breaks his nose. Both his eyes were black. We had to go get a mask for him, and he's sobbing. He's crying. I wanted to be the state champion. He lost. I can't even be the region champion. How can I be the state champion? And he was sobbing. This is after the match, and he can still go to state, but he's got to win 2 more matches because he's down in the losers bracket. And so I just went in and said, "Now, what's your ultimate goal? Your biggest goal? What is it?" And he says, "Well, to be the state champion." And I said, "How can you do that?" And he goes, "I don't know. I can't even win region." And district, they call it up there. And I said, "No, but if you go to state, you can still be the champion." And he went state, and in Idaho they seed state. It's not like they seed. And he had a kid, I still remember his name. He wrestled for Boise State. His name was, well, I shouldn't say name, should I? But his name was Alan Siggers. And he wrestled for Boise State after, and he was like 33-0, and he was the number 1 seed. And we were 3rd place coming out of our region. Guess who we wrestled first? Alan Siggers, first match, 10-1. Now he's 33-1. And now Kurt says, look who's crying now. He actually had me. He said, look who's crying. You know, but then he went ahead and he did it. He took state. So that was very exciting. Yeah. I mean, I've had other kids beat some very good kids, and but you never forget your first one, I don't think.
That's true. That's true.
So.
Got any more questions, sir?
I think I covered it, but let me just ask, is there anything else we haven't covered you might want to add?
Well, I think that I just want to add that I think that wrestling's on the road to notoriety. I think it's something that our society needs desperately. We need hard things.
Yeah.
People don't have to do hard things hardly ever anymore. They don't have to get up at 5 a.m. and milk the cows and haul the hay, and you know, there's a lot of things are pretty easy. And a lot of times the hardest things that kids do, you moms and dads, and your kids are gonna come home and they might even tell you they hated practice today because it's hard and they haven't been asked to do hard things. Don't let them quit. Make them do hard things. Hard things prepare you for life. Life's lovely. I love life, but it isn't always easy. So
That's great.
back them up, but have a backbone.
I love that. That's a great message to end with, too.
Yeah.
Life's tough, and wrestling will make you tougher.
Yeah.
Right? And prepare for it.
But life's beautiful too.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Life's
There's a lot of great things.
Yeah.
Well, let me just say it's been a pleasure to have you, Davie. I feel like I've been coaching 10 years, and I feel like I just learned a lot of new things too. In part because your perspective changes, you know, as your role changes. But some of those things I've heard before, but probably hadn't thought of them in the same way. So, thank you so much for coming
It's
on.
my pleasure.
It's been
I hope somebody watches it. So do you guys.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
that's right. I'm sure we'll get at least a few.
All right, thanks, you guys.
We really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. Just remind everybody, like us, give us some comments, let
Yeah.
us know you have any
One of those.
questions. Yeah.
One of those
Come
out
up.
there.
That's right.
Tell us what you liked and if, anything you want to hear from us. So we appreciate everybody. Thank you.